The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark metal mountain. Inside its gleaming halls, beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most important meeting in decades. The Galactic Council was about to decide the fate of a small blue planet called Earth. Admiral Hyun-Woo Kim stood at the edge of the great chamber, feeling very small. His dark blue uniform looked plain next to the flowing robes and shimmering armor of the alien delegates. Behind him stood Dr. So-Young Park, a brilliant scientist with kind eyes, and Colonel Jin-Ho Lee, a tough military man who kept his hand near his weapon, even though it was useless here. They had traveled for months to reach this place. Earth's first real contact with alien life. Humanity had finally built ships fast enough to reach the stars, and they had come here with hope in their hearts and data packets full of their greatest achievements, but the aliens barely looked at them. The Vorthak Empire controlled half the galaxy. Their leader, Prime Minister Veltar, was tall and thin with purple skin that seemed to glow. His voice sounded like music, but his words were cold. He picked up one of the human data packets and looked at it like it was garbage. "Chemical propulsion," Veltar said with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "They still burn fuel to move through space." "How primitive." The other aliens in the chamber laughed too. Some made clicking sounds, others hissed. All of them found humanity amusing. War Commander Zeflon of the Nexari Confederation was different from Veltar. Where the Vorthak was tall and thin, Zeflon was short and wide, covered in thick armor that never came off. His red eyes glowed as he watched videos of human wars on a floating screen. "Look at this," Zeflon said, his voice like grinding metal. "They fight with bullets and bombs. Metal pieces fired by small explosions. One of our ships could destroy their entire planet in an afternoon." Admiral Kim tried to speak. "Honored delegates, if you would just listen to what we have accomplished." "Accomplished?" Veltar interrupted. "You have learned to split atoms and built computers. Every species does this eventually. You are nothing special." Dr. Park stepped forward. She had spent her whole life studying the stars, dreaming of this moment. "We have art, music, literature. We have overcome wars and disease. We have learned to work together despite our differences." The aliens found this even funnier. "Cute," said a snake-like being from the back of the chamber. "The little mammals think they are special because they stopped killing each other for a few decades." Colonel Lee's jaw was tight. He had fought in 3 wars and had never felt as helpless as he did now. These beings saw humans as nothing more than clever animals. The council's speaker, an ancient creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, raised one of its tentacles. The chamber fell silent. "The council has reviewed the data from the Sol system," the speaker said in a voice that echoed in their minds rather than their ears. "The species known as humans will be classified as developing primitives. They will be placed under the joint protection of the Vorthak Empire and the Nexari Confederation." Admiral Kim felt his heart sink. Protection was just another word for slavery. "You have 6 standard months to prepare your world for integration," Veltar announced. "We will send guidance fleets to help you understand your new place in the galaxy." "And if we refuse?" Colonel Lee asked, though he already knew the answer. Zeflon's laugh was like a machine breaking. "Then we will provide corrective action. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop us. Resistance is not just futile, it is impossible." The meeting was over. The aliens began to leave, chattering among themselves about other business. To them, Earth was just another primitive world to be absorbed. They had done this 1,000 times before. As the 3 humans walked back to their small ship, Dr. Park noticed something important. In all their discussions about human technology and military power, the aliens had never asked about human history. They had never wondered how a species that was so weak and primitive had managed to survive and reach the stars. They had never asked about human psychology, about what happened when humans were backed into a corner with no way out, about the strange things humans did when they were told something was impossible. Admiral Kim stared out the window of their ship as they began the long journey home. 6 months to save humanity. 6 months before 2 massive fleets arrived to turn Earth into a colony world. "They think we are weak," he said quietly. "We are weak," Colonel Lee replied. "Compared to them, we might as well be throwing rocks." Dr. Park smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized something very important. "They are making a mistake." "What mistake?" Admiral Kim asked. "They think being primitive means being predictable," she said. They have forgotten that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you do not take seriously. Back on the council ship, Veltar and Zeflon met in private. Despite being from different empires, they agreed on one thing: Earth would be easy to conquer. 200 ships each, Veltar said. More than enough to handle a primitive world. Agreed, Zeflon replied. Though I claim the right to occupy their northern continents. My people need new resources. Fine. The Vorthak will take the southern regions. Their oceans will provide excellent mining opportunities. They shook hands, sealing the deal. In 6 months, Earth would be divided between them. The humans would become workers in their own world, grateful for the privilege of serving their betters. Neither of them noticed the small listening device that Dr. Park had managed to plant during the meeting. Neither of them cared that the humans had just learned exactly how many ships were coming. Most importantly, neither of them bothered to study the data packets the humans had brought. If they had, they might have noticed something strange about human history. Every time humans were told they could not do something, they found a way to do it anyway. As the human ship began its long journey home, Admiral Kim made a promise to himself. In 6 months, when those alien fleets arrived expecting easy victory, they would learn something new about the species they had dismissed as primitive. They would learn that humans had not reached the stars by being weak. They had done it by being stubborn, clever, and absolutely refusing to give up no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The aliens had made their first mistake. It would not be their last. The emergency meeting began at dawn. President Mi Kyung-jang sat at the head of a long table in the deepest bunker beneath Geneva. Around her, the leaders of every nation on Earth stared at the holographic display, showing 2 massive alien fleets moving toward their world. 6 months, she said simply. That is all we have. Admiral Kim had returned 3 days ago with the worst news in human history. The recording of the alien meeting played again, showing creatures that saw humans as nothing more than animals to be caged. General Dong-hyun Choi stood up slowly. He was an old soldier with scars on his face and sadness in his eyes. I have run the numbers 100 times. 400 alien ships with technology centuries ahead of ours. They could destroy every city on Earth from orbit. So we surrender? Asked the Prime Minister of Canada, her voice shaking. No, President Zhang said firmly. We fight. The room erupted in arguments. How could they fight beings with such advanced technology? It would be suicide. Better to negotiate, to find some way to live under alien rule. Dr. So-Young Park stood up and the room slowly grew quiet. Everyone knew she had been there, had seen the aliens up close. They are not gods, she said. They are just creatures with better tools. And they have made a fatal mistake. What mistake? General Choi asked. They think they understand us, Dr. Park replied. They looked at our weapons and our ships and decided we were weak. They never looked at our history. They never asked why a species as primitive as us managed to reach the stars in the first place. In the corner of the room, a thin man with thick glasses raised his hand. Engineer Tae Min-yoon had been quiet through the whole meeting, but now his eyes were bright with possibility. They use clean energy, he said. Perfect fusion reactions, controlled plasma, elegant quantum drives. Their technology is beautiful and efficient. How does that help us? Someone asked. Taemin smiled. Because beautiful and efficient means predictable. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and guided missiles. They have never faced someone desperate enough to use dirty bombs, radioactive debris, or kinetic weapons moving at relativistic speeds. President Zhang leaned forward. Explain. Every cargo ship in our fleet becomes a missile, Taemin said, his voice growing excited. Every satellite becomes a weapon. Every piece of space junk becomes ammunition. We do not try to out-technology them. We out-crazy them. Dr. Yoonji Nam, a physicist who had been working on Earth's defense grid, nodded slowly. The aliens expect us to fight like civilized beings. Energy weapons at long range, shields and countermeasures, formal battle tactics. What if we do not? Captain Soo-jin Han had been listening from the back of the room. She commanded a cargo hauler called the Indomitable, one of the largest ships in the human fleet. You want us to ram them? Among other things, General Choi said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Every ship becomes a suicide weapon if necessary. Every crew becomes a boarding party. We turn the entire Sol system into a trap. The next few months were like nothing in human history. Every factory on Earth stopped making consumer goods and started making weapons. Every shipyard worked around the clock, converting peaceful cargo vessels into warships. Captain Han stood in the cargo bay of her ship, watching welders attach armor plating and missile pods. Her crew of former merchant marines practiced boarding drills and learned to fight in zero gravity. They were not soldiers, but they were humans, and that would have to be enough. Underground, resistance leader Jae Sung-oh organized something the aliens had never encountered: a civilian army. His lieutenant, Hyeon Shin, had discovered that human manufacturing was different from alien production. Where alien systems were centralized and efficient, human industry was scattered and adaptable. They can destroy our major cities, Hyeon explained to a group of factory workers. But they cannot destroy every garage, every workshop, every basement where people are building weapons. Human manufacturing is like a virus. Cut off one part and 10 more appear. In secret facilities around the world, scientists worked on Project Anvil. The aliens expected humanity to surrender or fight with primitive weapons. They would get neither. Dr. Nam stood before a massive device that looked like a cross between a power plant and a cannon. Kinetic bombardment system, she explained to President Jang. Tungsten rods accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The aliens' energy shields will not even slow them down. How many can we build? The president asked. We already have them, Dr. Nam smiled. Every communication satellite, every weather station, every piece of space infrastructure we have built over the past century. We just need to modify them. Meanwhile, engineer Yoon worked on his masterpiece: suicide drones that looked exactly like regular missiles until the moment of impact. Each one carried a payload of radioactive waste that would wreak havoc on the aliens' sophisticated electronics. Their sensors are too good, he explained to his team. They can detect and destroy any missile we send. But what if the missile is not trying to avoid destruction? What if being shot down is part of the plan? 3 months before the alien fleets arrived, diplomat Young Soo-bae made a suggestion that shocked everyone. We invite them to a surrender ceremony, he said calmly. The room stared at him. Think about it, Young-soo continued. They expect us to surrender. Let them think we will. Get them to position their fleets exactly where we want them, then show them what human surrender actually looks like. In orbit around Earth, the defense grid took shape. To alien sensors, it would look like humanity preparing for a hopeless last stand. Old satellites, converted cargo ships, and hastily built defense platforms scattered throughout the system. What the aliens would not see until too late was that every piece of junk in Earth orbit had been turned into a weapon. Every asteroid had been hollowed out and filled with explosives. Every moon base had become a missile launcher. Captain Han met with her crew one last time before the aliens arrived. They were no longer merchants. They had become something new, humans with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. They think we are primitive, she told them. They are right. We still use chemical rockets and metal bullets. We still fight with fire and explosives and sharp pieces of metal. But they have forgotten something important about primitive weapons. What? Asked her weapons officer. They work, Captain Han replied. On the night before the alien fleets arrived, President Jang gave one last speech to the people of Earth. Tomorrow, we face an enemy that sees us as animals, she said. They have better ships, better weapons, better technology. They think this makes them superior. But they have never faced an animal that refuses to be caged. They have never fought a species that sees impossible odds as just another challenge to overcome. Around the world, humans made their final preparations. They knew most of them would not survive the coming battle. But they also knew something the aliens did not. Humans had never been very good at following the rules, and they were about to show the galaxy what happened when you threatened their home. The alien fleets arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, like two massive clouds of metal death. Commander Kylrath of the Vorthak Empire watched the tactical display from the bridge of his flagship, a kilometer-long vessel that could crack planets. Beside his fleet, the Nixari Confederation ships materialized in perfect formation. War leader Nexos commanded an equally impressive force of angular, weapon-bristling warships that looked like they had been designed by machines that hated organic life. Both commanders had the same thought. This would be over quickly. Primitive defensive positions, Kilrath observed, studying the scattered human ships and orbital platforms. They are trying to protect their homeworld with converted cargo vessels and communication satellites. Nexhos made a sound that might have been laughter. 200 ships each, and they send maybe 50 vessels to meet us. This will not even be good practice for our crews. The human fleet hung in space between Earth and the approaching aliens. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the refitted starship New Seoul, watching the enemy formations grow larger on his screens. Behind him, Dr. So Young Park monitored alien communications, while Colonel Jin-Ho Lee prepared for what everyone knew was a hopeless battle. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer. The main screen flickered to life, showing the faces of both alien commanders. Even through the translation systems, their contempt was clear. Humans of Earth, Kylrath began, his musical voice carrying across space. I am Commander Kelrath of the Vorthak Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your world immediately and prepare for integration into our empire. War leader Nexhos leaned into view. I am Nexhos of the Nexari war machine. Your resistance ends now. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Admiral Kim activated his own transmission. He looked tired, defeated. Exactly what the aliens expected to see. This is Admiral Kim of the Earth Defense Force, he said slowly. We need to discuss terms. The two alien commanders exchanged glances. This was going even better than expected. There are no terms, Kylrath replied. Only surrender. Please, Admiral Kim continued, his voice shaking slightly. Our people are scared. We need time to explain to them what is happening. Could we meet? To discuss how this surrender will work? Nexhos made that grinding laugh again. The mammals want to negotiate their own enslavement. How pathetic. But Kylrath was more thoughtful. A peaceful surrender would be better than a battle, even a short one. Damaged ships meant repairs and delays. A clean takeover would look better in his reports to the Empire. Very well, Kylrath said. You will come aboard my flagship in 1 hour. Bring your senior staff. We will explain how your new lives will proceed. The transmission ended. On both alien flagships, the commanders began preparing for what they assumed would be a simple surrender ceremony. What they did not know was that every word of their conversation had been broadcast across every human ship, station, and settlement in the Sol system, the signal to begin the final phase of humanity's plan. An hour later, Admiral Kim approached the Vorthak flagship in a small shuttle. With him were Dr. Park, Colonel Lee, and diplomat Young-Soo Bae. The aliens allowed them to dock, confident in their overwhelming superiority. The meeting took place in a vast chamber aboard the Vorthak ship. Kylrath sat on something that might have been a throne, while Nexhos stood nearby in his powered armor. Both were surrounded by guards carrying weapons that could have vaporized the humans instantly. So, Kylrath began. You accept that resistance is futile? Admiral Kim nodded slowly. We do. Our ships cannot fight yours. Our weapons are too primitive. We just want to make sure our people will be treated fairly. Fairly? Nexhos laughed. You will work where we tell you to work. You will live where we tell you to live. You will be grateful that we allow you to live at all. Young-Soo Bae stepped forward. He was a small, quiet man who had spent his life avoiding conflict. But now he looked directly at the alien war leader. We understand, he said softly. We just need a little time to organize the surrender. Our governments need to formally stand down. Our military needs to power down their weapons. Could you give us, say, 24 hours? The aliens found this amusing. The humans wanted to organize their own defeat. Acceptable, Kylrath said, but do not attempt any tricks. Our sensors can detect every ship, every weapon, every large energy source in your system. Any aggressive action will result in the immediate destruction of your major population centers. No tricks, Admiral Kim promised. We know when we are beaten, Dr. Park smiled politely. Could we ask where you will position your fleets during this time? We want to make sure our ships stay clear of your formations to avoid any accidents. Nexhos pulled up a tactical display. The Vorthak will take position here. He indicated a point in space near Earth's moon. The Nexari will anchor there. He showed another position on the opposite side of the planet. Perfect crossfire coverage of your world. Any ship that moves without permission will be destroyed. Perfect, Dr. Park said, still smiling. The meeting ended with the aliens confident they had achieved victory without firing a shot. The humans returned to their shuttle and began the journey back to their fleet. As soon as they were out of sensor range, Admiral Kim activated a secure communication system. All stations, this is Alpha 1, he transmitted. The guests are taking their seats. Repeat, the guests are taking their seats. Across the Sol system, humans received the message. In orbital platforms disguised as communication satellites, Director Sang Ho Ko began the final countdown. On converted cargo ships, captains like Su Jin Han made sure their crews were ready for suicide runs. In hidden bunkers on asteroids and moons, missile crews prepared weapons that the alien sensors had dismissed as mining equipment. The alien fleets moved into position exactly where the humans had hoped they would. Kailrath positioned his ships in a perfect formation near the moon, while Nexhos arranged his fleet on the opposite side of Earth. Both commanders were pleased with their tactical positions. What they did not realize was that they had just moved into the center of the largest minefield in human history. Youngsu Bei sat quietly in the shuttle as they returned to the human fleet. The aliens had asked many questions about human surrender procedures, but they had never asked the most important question of all. They had never asked what humans meant when they said they would surrender. Admiral Kim looked at his watch. 23 hours and 57 minutes until the aliens expected humanity's formal surrender. Instead, they were about to learn what happened when humans decided that surrender was not an option. 3 minutes remained until dawn on Earth. 3 minutes until the aliens discovered that primitive weapons had one advantage over advanced technology. Nobody saw them coming. Dr. Park activated her personal communicator one last time before the battle began. All units, she said quietly, remember the Alamo. It was an old human reference that the aliens would not understand. But every human in the Sol system knew what it meant. It meant that sometimes the only way to win was to refuse to lose. At exactly 06 at Earth Standard Time, Admiral Hyun-woo Kim gave the signal that changed everything. Remember the Alamo, he said into his communicator. Across the Sol system, humans who had been pretending to surrender for 24 hours suddenly revealed what they had really been doing with their time. The first attack did not come from ships. It came from Earth itself. Director Sang Ho Ko sat in a bunker beneath the Sahara Desert, his hand on a control that had been disguised as a weather monitoring system. When Admiral Kim's signal came through, Ko smiled and pressed the button. Rods from God, away, he announced. High above Earth, what the aliens thought were communication satellites suddenly revealed their true purpose. Magnetic launchers that had been hidden inside began firing tungsten rods toward the alien fleets. Each rod was only a few meters long, but they were moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The aliens' energy shields, designed to stop plasma bolts and guided missiles, did nothing against solid chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds. Commander Kailrath was reviewing surrender procedures when his flagship shuddered. Alarms began blaring throughout the Vorthak fleet. Report, he commanded. Multiple impacts on the fleet. His tactical officer replied, disbelief in his voice. Kinetic projectiles from planetary orbit. Shields are ineffective. On the main screen, Kailrath watched in horror as 3 of his destroyers simply ceased to exist, torn apart by tungsten rods that hit with the force of nuclear weapons. War leader, Nexhos, was having the same experience on the other side of Earth. His perfect formation was being shredded by attacks that his technology could not stop. How? He roared. Our sensors detected no weapons capable of this. The projectiles are non-guided, sir, his weapons officer reported. Simple kinetic rounds fired from fixed launchers. Our systems classified them as debris, but the kinetic bombardment was only the beginning. Captain Su Jin Han stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as her ship and 50 others accelerated toward the alien formations. They were no longer disguised as cargo vessels. Armor plating covered their hulls and missile pods bristled from every surface. All ships, this is Hunter 1, she announced over the fleet communication system. Time to show these aliens what human engineering really looks like. The human fleet had been positioned between the 2 alien formations, apparently surrendering. Now they revealed their true purpose. They were a hammer, ready to strike both anvils at once. Engineer Tae Min Yoon's masterpiece activated as the human ships charged. Each vessel launched what appeared to be conventional missiles toward the alien fleets. The aliens' point defense systems easily destroyed most of them. That was exactly what Yoon had planned. Dirty bombs, detonation confirmed, he reported from his control center. Enemy electronics should be experiencing significant interference about Now, when the missiles exploded, they scattered clouds of radioactive particles and metal chaff. The aliens' sophisticated sensors, designed for clean space combat, began malfunctioning immediately. Their targeting systems failed. Their communication arrays went dead. Their perfect formations became collections of blind, deaf ships. Captain Han watched the tactical display as the alien fleet struggled to adapt to weapons they had never encountered. All ships, ramming speed, she commanded. The Indomitable had been a cargo hauler, designed to carry massive loads across space. Now it carried the largest load of its career, a specially designed fusion bomb that would turn the ship into a miniature star when it detonated. As her ship plowed through the disabled Vorthak formation, Han could see alien crew members through the windows of their ships. They looked terrified. "Good. For humanity," she shouted as the Indomitable rammed into the side of a Vorthak cruiser. The explosion that followed was visible from Earth. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Woo Jin Park was leading a boarding action that the aliens had never imagined possible. His Marines wore simple pressure suits and carried weapons that fired metal bullets. But they had advantages the aliens lacked. They were desperate, they were angry, and they had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Breach! Breach! Breach!" Park shouted as his team blew holes in the hull of a crippled Nixari warship. The aliens inside were still trying to restore their sensors when armed humans in vacuum suits came pouring through their corridors. The sophisticated alien weapons required complex targeting systems that were not working. Human weapons just needed someone to point them and pull a trigger. Sergeant Haerin Kim led her squad through the alien ship's engineering section, planting explosive charges on anything that looked important. The aliens they encountered were not prepared for close-quarters combat, with beings they had dismissed as primitive. "Sir," she reported to Colonel Park, "we have captured their main computer core. Download everything," Park ordered, "especially their communication codes." Back in space, the battle was becoming a nightmare for both alien fleets. They had expected a quick, clean victory over primitive humans. Instead, they were fighting an enemy that used tactics no civilized species would consider. Human ships rammed alien vessels, detonating massive bombs on impact. Human fighters swarmed around alien formations, firing clouds of metal debris that shredded sophisticated equipment. Human boarding parties captured alien ships from the inside while their crews were still trying to figure out why their technology had stopped working. But the worst was yet to come. Intelligence Officer Yu Jin Song sat in a hidden facility on the dark side of Earth's moon, listening to alien communications. Thanks to the data Colonel Park's team had captured, she could understand everything the aliens were saying to each other, and what she heard made her smile. "Admiral," she reported to Kim, "the alien commanders are blaming each other for the losses. The Vorthak think the Nixari should have detected our weapons. The Nixari think the Vorthak should have better shields." Admiral Kim nodded. "Phase 3. Let them know about the intercepted communications." Yujin began broadcasting selected alien transmissions on frequencies both fleets could hear. Suddenly, Commander Kylrath could hear War Leader Nexhos calling him incompetent. Nexhos could hear Kylrath claiming that Nexari technology was inferior. The effect was immediate. Ships from both fleets began targeting each other instead of the humans. Dr. Yunji Nam watched from her command center as her final weapon came online. For months, she had been preparing for this moment. The controlled overload of every fusion reactor in the Sol system. "EMP burst in 3, 2, 1, she announced. The electromagnetic pulse that followed was like a miniature solar flare. It swept across the entire Sol system, frying every piece of sophisticated electronics it encountered. Human equipment, shielded with simple copper mesh and hardened against such attacks, continued working. Alien technology, elegant and efficient and completely unprepared for such a crude attack, failed completely. In the space around Earth, nearly 400 alien ships found themselves blind, deaf, and helpless. Ground Commander Inho Park chose that moment to reveal Earth's final surprise. Hidden missile silos across the planet opened, launching weapons that had been designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses humans had discovered during their diplomatic meetings. Each missile carried a payload designed to disrupt the specific type of technology each alien race used. Quantum resonance disruptors for Vorthak ships, magnetic pulse generators for Nexari equipment, Simple, brutal weapons that worked because the aliens had never bothered to study human creativity. As the last of his missiles streaked toward the disabled alien fleets, Admiral Kim gave his final order: all units, no survivors. Let the galaxy know what happens when you underestimate Earth. What followed was not a battle, it was an execution. The alien fleets that had come to enslave humanity found themselves destroyed by the very species they had dismissed as primitive. Their advanced technology became a liability when faced with weapons designed by beings who refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. By the end of the day, the space around Earth was filled with debris that had once been 400 alien warships. Only a handful of vessels escaped, carrying word of humanity's victory back to their empires. On Earth, humans looked up at the sky and saw the wreckage of their would-be conquerors drifting in orbit like a metal graveyard. They had won. Against impossible odds, using primitive weapons and desperate tactics, they had won. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The battle had been raging for 18 hours, and space around Earth looked like a graveyard of metal and dreams. The wreckage of alien ships drifted in slow, deadly orbits while the survivors struggled to understand what had gone so terribly wrong. Commander Kyle Rath stood in the emergency command center of his damaged flagship, staring at tactical displays that showed a disaster beyond his worst nightmares. Of his original 200 ships, fewer than 60 remained functional. The rest were debris, destroyed by weapons that should not have existed. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "War Leader Nexahos is demanding to speak with you." Kyle Rath closed his eyes. The Nixari commander had been sending increasingly angry messages all day, blaming the Vorthak for the catastrophic losses both fleets had suffered. "Put him through," Kyle Rath said wearily. Nexahos appeared on the screen, his red eyes blazing with fury. Behind him, the bridge of his ship showed blast damage and emergency lighting. "This is your fault," Nexahos roared. "Your intelligence said these humans were primitive. Your scouts said they had no real weapons. My fault?" Kyle Rath shot back. "Your ships were supposed to have the best armor in the galaxy. How did human projectiles tear through them like paper? Because you failed to detect their kinetic weapons. A competent commander would have seen the threat." Intelligence Officer Yu Jin Song smiled as she listened to the alien commanders tear each other apart over stolen communication channels. From her hidden base on Luna, she had been feeding carefully selected transmissions to both fleets all day, making sure each commander heard the worst things the other said about them. "Admiral," she reported to Hyun-Woo Kim, "the alien unity is completely broken. They are spending as much energy fighting each other as fighting us." Admiral Kim nodded grimly. His own fleet had paid a terrible price for their victory. Ships like the Indomitable were gone, along with their brave crews. But their sacrifice was working. The aliens were destroying themselves. Captain Boram Lee commanded the destroyer Taekwondo, one of the few human ships still capable of independent action. She had been waiting for this moment all day, watching the alien fleets tear themselves apart. "Navigation, plot an intercept course between the two alien formations," she ordered. "Sir, that will put us directly in their crossfire," her weapons officer warned. Captain Lee smiled coldly. "That is exactly what I want." The Taekwondo accelerated toward the space between the two crippled alien fleets. As Lee had hoped, both sides detected her ship and immediately assumed it was attacking them. "Vorthak ships firing on our position," Lee announced over open communications that she knew the aliens were monitoring. "Nixari weapons locked onto us," she added a moment later. The effect was immediate. Both alien fleets, already suspicious of each other, began targeting the enemy formation instead of the single human ship dancing between them. "All stop," Lee ordered as alien energy beams began crossing the space around her ship. "Let them do our work for us." Dr. Yunji Nam watched the developing battle from her control center and realized this was the perfect moment for her second surprise. The electromagnetic pulse had disabled most alien electronics, but some systems were coming back online. Time to make sure they stayed down. "Activating secondary EMP burst," she announced. Hidden nuclear reactors across the Sol system overloaded in sequence, creating rolling waves of electromagnetic energy that swept through space. Any alien system that had managed to restart immediately failed again. The alien fleets, already fighting each other in the darkness, became completely blind once more. Admiral Kun Woo Shin commanded the last operational human squadron from his ship orbiting Mars. He had been waiting for this moment. when the alien fleets were completely distracted and helpless. All ships, begin the final approach, he ordered. His squadron consisted of converted mining ships, cargo haulers, and passenger liners. They were not warships, but each one carried the deadliest cargo in human history: antimatter bombs built from the fuel supplies of Earth's deep space exploration program. Remember, Admiral Shin told his crews, we are not trying to disable these ships. We are trying to erase them. The aliens fighting each other in the electromagnetic darkness never saw the human squadron approaching. They were too busy trying to kill each other to notice new threats. Colonel Woo Jin Park and his Marines had spent the last 18 hours capturing alien ships from the inside. His teams now controlled 3 Vorthak cruisers and 2 Nexari destroyers, using them to attack their former allies. Sir, Sergeant Hayrin Kim reported, we have accessed the alien fleet coordination systems. We can disrupt their formations and communication. Do it, Park ordered. Make sure they cannot coordinate any kind of withdrawal. What followed was the most one-sided battle in galactic history. The alien fleets, already crippled by human weapons, found their own ships turning against them. Captured vessels began firing on their former comrades. Communication systems that had been hacked began sending false orders. Formation flying became impossible when ships could not trust their own sensors. War leader Nexhos realized too late what was happening. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had turned it against itself. All remaining ships retreat, he ordered. Full withdrawal. But there was nowhere to go. Admiral Shin's squadron had positioned themselves to cut off any escape routes. Captain Lee's destroyer continued to dance between the alien formations, making sure they kept shooting at each other instead of organizing a retreat. Commander Kyle Rath made one last, desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Nexari ships, ceasefire. We must work together against the humans. Nexhos laughed bitterly. Work together? After you led us into this trap? After your incompetence cost us both our fleets? My incompetence? Kyle Rath shouted back. You are the one who said human weapons could not penetrate our shields. Yujin Song made sure both conversations were broadcast to every surviving alien ship. Any chance of the 2 fleets cooperating was destroyed by their own words. Ground Commander In-Ho Park chose that moment to reveal Earth's final weapon: gravity bombs hidden throughout the asteroid belt. When detonated, they created artificial gravity wells that pulled disabled alien ships into crushing collisions with space debris. Gravity mines, armed and ready, Park reported. Any alien ship that tries to escape will be pulled apart. Dr. Nam activated her masterpiece, a network of fusion reactors that had been disguised as mining equipment throughout the Sol system. When they overloaded simultaneously, they created a series of artificial solar flares that swept across space, destroying any alien technology that had somehow survived the previous attacks. The space around Earth became a death trap of radiation, gravity wells, debris fields, and humans who absolutely refused to let their enemies escape. By the end of the 19th hour, the destruction was complete. Of the 400 alien ships that had arrived to conquer Earth, only 12 vessels remained functional. They limped away from the Sol system carrying the survivors of the greatest military disaster in galactic history. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of his battered flagship, watching the last alien ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. Around Earth, the wreckage of 388 alien warships drifted in slowly decaying orbits. Status report, he requested. Alien fleets destroyed, sir, his tactical officer reported. Threat eliminated. Captain Lee's voice came over the communication system from her position between the debris fields. Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from disabled alien ships. No prisoners, Admiral Kim replied without hesitation. They came here to enslave us. Let them explain that to whatever gods they believe in. President Mikyung Jang watched from the emergency bunker as the last alien escape pods were destroyed by human fighters. She felt no joy in the victory, only grim satisfaction that her species would remain free. Broadcast a message to the galaxy, she ordered. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what happens when someone tries to conquer Earth. The message that went out was simple and direct. The Vorthak Empire and Nexari Confederation sent 400 ships to enslave humanity. 12 ships survived to return home. Earth is not available for conquest. Do not make the same mistake. As the sun set on the greatest battle in human history, children across Earth looked up at the sky and saw new stars, the burning wreckage of ships that had come to steal their freedom. Humanity had faced impossible odds and won through courage, ingenuity, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had just taught the universe a lesson in the price of underestimating those who fight for their homes.